Again, my name is Dr. Eric. This is a talk on how to remain independent and strong. We help people achieve greater mobility and strength for their active life without medications, drugs, and surgeries, even when nothing else has worked. That's been our mission since we opened the doors a little over 6 years ago, and that remains our mission today. I started Physical Achievement Center because I saw a big gap between what should be offered as standards of care when it comes to pain, balance, things like this, conditions from head to toe, and what's actually being offered. I was recognizing that a lot of people were confused, stuck, and not sure where to go, and oftentimes when they went to their healthcare providers, there wasn't enough time to talk about all their options. Well, in an informed consumer, which we all want to be when it comes to healthcare, we need to understand all of our choices, all of our options, so we can make a really good choice about how we're going to proceed with some of the challenges that come before us. And that's essentially why we started the practice, for a place for people to come for information if they're stuck and unsure, not knowing what to do. And we never want to disrespect anyone by saying silly things like, take these meds, use more medications, or you just have to live with it, or ignore it altogether, or the dreaded, what do you expect at your age, right? Like, that wouldn't fly in our vocabulary, right? Everybody clearly understands that things change over time with age. Accepting pain, weakness, inability to do things, falls is not one of them. So we're real steadfast on that. So essentially we want to make people make better healthcare decisions. And there's a concept some of you may know about, evidence-based practice. How many people have heard of that? Evidence-based practice is pretty straightforward, so we probably have some nurses in the bunch, but it just means that you've got a combination of a patient preference, like you think of a big circle, clinical experience, and then what does the research support? So if you think about it, if you're trying to solve a problem, and the patient has a preference towards one thing, the practitioner has an experience in that area, and there's research to support it, where they all meet. If you engage in that treatment, what's your chance of chance of success? Pretty high, right? But if you don't know all your choices, then it's pretty tough to understand and how to make a good healthcare decision. So that's why we do presentations, talks. Of course, we like introducing ourselves and having people come to us if they feel so inclined, but we feel really driven to educate them. We do talks 2-3 a month, and we have it for the last 6 years. So that's kind of a little bit about us. There's some of the team here in the picture. I've got 2 individuals here. Erica. Erica is actually co-founder. We opened up a diesel in February 2017 and built the clinic. She is my daughter. She's now helps in operations and marketing. And Bren is here too. She's one of our newest members, a great smiling face. She helps us out at the front desk. So I've got over 30 clinical years of experience. I'm going to quickly go through some of the clinical staff so you understand them. Had a chance to be fellowship trained to learn about the top research and clinical applications of pain relief from head to toe. Helped a number of folks in the area here. Dr. Rebecca has over 10 years of clinical experience. I think we can safely announce she's a new mother. Her second child was just born last week. We're really excited about her. She's trained in the specialty movement system in a mentorship program, and she's certified in dry needling. Dr. Jessica is in a fellowship training program currently. She's specially trained in upper extremity, certified in dry needling. She's certified in dizziness, and great doctor of physical therapy. Jean is one of our physical therapist assistants. She's specially trained in pain relief and sports recovery massage. She's a certified upper extremity specialist, certified spine specialist. Courtney is another physical therapist assistant who works with us. She's got over 6 years of experience as a physical therapist assistant, much of that in home health. She's specially trained in pain relief and sports recovery massage, certified spine specialist, certified upper and lower body specialist. And then we have Robin Barber. She's got over 25 years experience. She's actually a certified radiology technician and computer tomography technician. She leads up our wellness program, specializing in neuropathy and nutrition supplementation. Lori Shapes is an OT who is especially trained in upper extremity and lymphatic massage. Oh, I didn't expect that. Eric will try to save the day here. I don't know what I lost up. I should try to save the day. So today's topic is about anyway, it's kind of a brag list, yes, but also I just want you to understand that we're interested in really high-level clinical training, high-level communication with patients, again, so they can make really great healthcare decisions. So the bulk of the talk today is going to be about some simple tests to assess a couple of elements of wellness. One of those is balance, strength, and endurance. We're going to go over some self-tests for some of those things to help determine, are you challenged in this area? If so, how bad is it? And then give you some tips to help you understand what you can do to overcome that, with both resources that you could perhaps do on your own, DIY, like who doesn't like a good DIY kind of thing, do it yourself, right? And when to seek professional help for some of your problems, right? And then furthermore, some guidelines is to think about how can I understand how I'm progressing over time to get some improvement. So we want to offer some hope in that regard. So, there's a lot of definitions that are thrown around in health and wellness as it relates to movement, strength, fitness, and that sort of thing. I'm just going to give you my understanding of some of these so that you understand when I'm talking about these sort of things, the terminology that I'm using. So, the term mobility can mean a lot of things. To a doctor of physical therapy, it means basically how much movement is in your skeleton in different parts, right? Like how much do the bones move? That includes the spine, shoulders, neck, hips, ankles. And there's some simple tests to determine how mobile you might be. There's a couple for the lower body and a couple for the upper body. So I'm going to demonstrate one for the lower body. And the reason this is important is because we need to maintain enough mobility to do simple things like tie shoes, get up and down steps, squat to the floor, garden, those sort of things. I see across the hall some people playing pickleball, so you need a certain amount of flexibility to do some of those higher level activities, but also some of those basic activities that you might be doing. So, chair, sit, and reach test. This is really basic, and actually if you want to move your chair and try this on your own, great. After you see this, basically you sit on the front of a chair, safely with one foot planted, put one leg out, and do a simple reach with both hands, and see if you can't get close to, or maybe even a little bit beyond your toe, right? So that's a really straightforward, simple test. If your chair is unsteady, you might want to put that chair against the wall. Shoes on is helpful to maintain balance, and crossing one hand over. People get real creative with different ways to try to reach their foot, and I totally respect that, but that test is one hand over the other in order to really give a accurate description of that. So this is an illustration of this. This lady's sitting on the edge of the chair. She's reaching forward, and she's able to nearly touch her toes, right? So the toes should be somewhat kind of familiar to you, right? Guys, maybe a couple inches within the toes. Ladies, maybe a little bit beyond the toes. Maybe a little bit towards the toes, within a couple of inches, right? Should be within a couple inches of touching your toes, one way or the other. And a fairly decent representation of flexibility, not only of your hamstring, which most people think of this as is, but much more importantly, your hip. Hip flexibility is really key, because a lot of people who have difficulty with their knee, for instance, or weakness in their legs, they really have tightness in their hip joint. Additionally, people may have trouble with their lower back, and their lower back issue may be in part caused by a tight hip. So you want to make sure those hips are mobile. That's a fairly straightforward test to determine how flexible one side might be compared to the other. And certainly if you have more pain on one side than the other and you have trouble with that, might be a clue that you can use some assistance. Here's some guidelines, again, within a couple of inches of touching your toes. And as age goes up, there is one thing that does happen as we get older. What's that one thing? We get wiser. That's old school wise, right? Tissues do tend to tighten up a little bit over time. That's one thing that is an age-related change. that we can't get away from. So you'll see some of these norms here in the ages of 60 to 64 compared to 80 to 84. There's going to be a little less tendency to reach. I don't think that's news to anybody who has experienced life, right? Things tend to get a little stiffer, especially if you don't pay attention to things. So that's a mobility test for the lower extremity, for the legs. It's a pretty simple one for the shoulder mobility test. This is pretty straightforward. Reaching up is really important for a lot of things, right? Get that underarm clean, make sure you're okay to go in public, right? Dressing, reaching into cabinets. If you find yourself trying to lower important things down the cabinet, you might be trying to respond to stiffness in the shoulder. The other thing that happens, if the shoulders are stiff, one thing that's not recognized, when I reach up, you might see some movement in my upper back. And if I'm not reaching up as much, my upper back is going to stiffen up, and that's not really helpful for your neck or your lower back. So keeping that upper thoracic spine, that area between the neck and the lower back flexible with robust amount of reaching up is helpful. So it's kind of a functional shoulder reach test. We want to aim towards the spot that's at the lower neck, that's that bony bump there. So that's reaching over this way, right? We'd like to get to the base of our neck. And you can do this now, of course, in the chair. You won't be disturbing your neighbor too much. And certainly right to left. Question is, hey, can one side be tighter than the other? Most assuredly it is. Most of us are not ambidextrous. We're handed in a certain way. The next shoulder reach test is behind the neck. Ideally, we'd be able to reach out to the brow line. But at least we should be able to pick our own back pocket. Right? So obviously that's important, again, for shoulder strength and for mobility so that our shoulders can have the proper movement. One thing that happens if joints are tight and don't get the proper movement, our muscles don't have enough room to exert all their strength. It's kind of like if you remember bicycling. If you've got a little bit of a hill, you probably don't want to start the hill right at the bottom of the hill. When you go up it with a bicycle, you probably want to get a running start. So if you don't have adequate flexibility in the joint, your muscles don't have enough of a running start to be strong in action, to be strong enough to lift and push and pull. So mobility is kind of dependent, or rather strength is dependent upon having full mobility. So those are a couple simple mobility tests. And obviously the numerous things that's important for that I mentioned about. And again, that's important if you're trying to maintain your house, maintain self-care, keeping yourself clean and in check, managing your house, reaching up into cabinets, that sort of thing. Particularly helpful if you're wanting to do more active things, gardening, pickleball, that sort of thing. All right. Next thing is strength. Strength is another term that has lots of different meanings to lots of different people, and that's fine. I'll give you a real simple, straightforward. The ability of your muscles to generate force to do stuff, right? Nothing happens in the physical world without us moving our muscles in order to move either ourselves around or move something else around. So we can simply think of strength as the ability of the muscles to move stuff. Lifting groceries, getting out of a chair, reaching cabinets, getting down steps in particular, and reacting when we have a balance upset. For instance, if I'm walking along and I have a little stumble, I want to be strong enough so I can get that leg out quickly and have enough strength so I don't go butt over too quickly. That requires a significant amount of strength in the legs. And strength is about force production. And typically with muscle strength, yes, more is better. So I'm going to draw a little chart here and talk about why strength is important. So one of the things that happens over time, this is age 25, 35, 45, and onwards, right? So one of the things we recognize is in terms of muscle strength, we're usually pretty robust and strong at age 25. That tends to be a pinnacle of strength for a whole number of reasons. There's a bit of bad news though. After age 25,
there is this slow decline of strength that happens. Strength changes is not big.
It's only 1 to 2%. So year over year, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot. However, you start taking that out a few decades, a number of people here might have more than 50 birthday candles on their birthday cake, for instance, and you're going to have this tendency to have a decline in strength. You can think of this kind of like a car engine or a truck engine. If you've got a nice pontoon boat that you want to take to the lake, you probably want like a V8, a V6 for sure, right? In the automobile, you want a nice big robust engine. But over time, that V8 ends up becoming, in this analogy, a V6, and then eventually a V4, or a straight 4. And then pretty soon, there is a critical loss of strength in order to do a certain amount of things. That's a crisis point right there. So that might be something like being able to get up and down from the floor. Might be something like controlling your weight going downstairs. Might be something like picking up a grandchild, doing some gardening, that sort of thing. So when you're here, you're vulnerable, right? You're vulnerable, and that thing is kind of risky, a real challenge. No problem, though. Can this change? Absolutely can change.
You can reverse that tendency.
So take that V4 and turn it back into a V6. I can assure you, I see lots of individuals who, even if they hadn't been active their whole life, they start engaging in the proper strength activities and they get quite robust and strong at any age. It's really inspiring. So just because there's a natural decline in strength, some of that is due to some physical changes, but I think a lot of that is due to behavioral changes. When we're young, we're much more active, we're lifting kids, we're in vigorous work occupations. Manual labor and 50 to 60-year-olds starts to kind of go down. Like we don't do that much of that. That's more rarity. And there is this natural tendency for some strength decline if left to its own, but we can certainly increase it, which is really encouraging. So getting back to the discussion of strength, there's a couple of straightforward leg strength tests. One of my favorite is a 30-second sit-to-stand test. Some of you may have done this before. It's just to determine how the functional strength is. It's pretty straightforward. You want to get a chair, resting against a wall or some sort of firm surface so that chair stays stable. We want to be sure that we help assess strength and balance for individuals. This is probably a more important exercise than just an activity than just kind of pushing and pulling some weights with the legs, which I'm all in favor of. And simply put, this is an illustration of it, crossing your arms from sitting, come to standing. Ideally, individuals would have a certain number of these based on their age. And how many can you do in 30 seconds? Here's a chart. If you're in your early 60s, should be in the 12 to 14 range. If you're in your 70s, somewhere in the 10 to 11 range. If you're in your 80s, somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. And even if you're in your 90s, ideally, and again, these are values for people who are safe and mobile in the community. So these are age-related norms. So you kind of see how that might score. And we do see this in the clinic, that when individuals get to these levels, based on their age group, they seem to check out and be pretty strong and stable on their feet. Any questions on that? You guys are really attentive. We're going to have time for questions and answers later on. There's another test that's a simple test to measure arm strength. This I kind of like. So wanting to see how strong your arms are, simple test. And these things are important for lifting groceries, for keeping strong in your house, carrying things like vacuum cleaners, and also keeping active in the community. So, this is pretty straightforward. We're going to sit in the chair, and we're going to aim for one of two weights. Ladies are going to aim for a 5-pound weight. You can see that okay? Gentlemen are going to aim for an 8-pound weight. And and simply see how many fully straight and how many bendings you can do of your arm in 30 seconds. So it's kind of similar in terms of that time test for the sit-to-stand test. So if you don't have fancy weights at home, it's pretty simple. You can use a gallon of milk or water for 8 pounds, or you could use a liter of soda for a 5-pound representation. Pretty straightforward test. And then here are some values that would be appropriate for an individual. Somewhere above a dozen for 60-year-olds, well above a dozen to approximately 10 for 80 and 90-year-olds. So that's a good measure in 30 seconds. I like that because of its simplicity. We're going to get into, on the heels of strength talk, we're going to get into what's recommended by 2 organizations. One of them, I'm listing the Centers for Disease Control, but one of them I like to reference is actually the American College of Sports Medicine. Fancy word for people who think about, study the benefits of exercise for individuals. So their guidelines, and you may have heard of some of these before, are to engage in several activities. One is to get 150 to 300 minutes of moderate level aerobic exercise. Anybody ever heard of that before? Raise your hand, right? Okay. So that can come about with moderate level aerobic exercise, or you can spend less time and have a little more huffing and puffing with more intensive exercise. So one might be walking on hills, and the other might be doing stairs. So lower level activity, brisk walking. Higher level activity might be stairs, more vigorous bicycling, or maybe even vigorous swimming.
Are you talking about per week?
Per week, yes. Thank you. Per week. Thank you. I'll specify that. Plus just 300 minutes of regular activity, right? Gardening, shopping, house cleaning, that sort of thing. That's a fair amount, right, over the course of a week. Plus 2 days plus of resistance training. So what is resistance training? Resistance training is simply put, we're going to use our large muscle groups to push and pull heavy things. And we're going to do that at higher levels over time because our body needs that stimulation to get to a higher level of strength. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like I do things to make my muscles work about 10 times. And at the end of those 10 repetitions, my muscles have felt like they've worked. Doesn't mean they need to be painful. For instance, if someone is struggling doing 12 sit-to-stands, if they do 10 sit-to-stands, like this, and at that 10th one, they feel like they've done some work, like they couldn't hardly do anymore, that's a strength training exercise. So it's to exhaustion. It's not like we could just lift our leg and kind of kick our leg out 300 times without getting fatigued. That's not the same thing. So when it comes to strength training, the type of strength training that stops this decline and reverses it, you need to have more vigorous strength activities. I have a little quiz here. How many of you, based on your understanding now of strength training, believe you're doing a regular strength training routine? Like you see on a regular basis. Raise your hand nice and tall. Nice. So I'm doing a quick survey of the room, and there might be about 30% of you, right? So there's an opportunity for those of you that didn't raise your hands to go see Ben, for instance, and get oriented to some of the strength training equipment here. Because I can tell you, I love the beginning strength training equipment here. It's phenomenal. It's easy to use, it's extremely safe, and you can probably use it intuitively, but some guidance from Ben and his crew would help quite a lot. So when I come back here again, guess what? I'm going to ask the same question. So, if you're thinking about a takeaway point from my talk, this is it. That if you're not doing strength training and you want to improve your health,
Want to improve your chance of remaining independent? Want to get strong? Start today. So we're going to carry on with balance. Balance is really important, right? So I love this. People are going to write a definition of balance here, but I'm going to save this in a little bit. So balance refers to an individual's ability to maintain their line of gravity within their base of support. It can also be described as the ability to maintain equilibrium. I don't even know what that means. Let's keep it a little bit simpler. Equilibrium can be defined as any condition in which acting forces are canceled by each other, resulting in a stable, balanced system. That don't make any sense either. So, simply put, your ability to control yourself against gravity so you don't fall when you're moving or standing upright. Pretty basic and straightforward. So the cool thing is when people are standing, they're actually moving a little bit. They're moving a little bit because our system, our nervous system, our brain needs a little bit of stimulation all the time to make sure it knows what's going on in their body. So balance is the ability to feel what's going on in the body, manage that unconsciously, because I don't want to think about balance. I got a hard enough time making sure I stay on track for the talk here, right? I don't want to think about my balance, my body does it automatically. And then my brain is attempting to make balance corrections in my muscles automatically without thinking about it. So it's that interaction of information coming into the brain processing that, and then the body moving those signals out to the body parts to make sure things are steady Eddie so we don't fall over. Here's some simple, straightforward tests for balance. Here's the biggest one. Have you fallen or nearly fallen within the last year? Outside of slipping on ice or an inverted tripping, if you have, chances are your balance is challenged. Can you pass the stepping test? I'm going to go over the stepping test. And what about the single leg stance test? So let's explore some of those a little bit. The stepping test is a great do-it-yourself test. We want to be safe when we do this. And I'm going to demonstrate this. Ideally, you do this next to a counter or a handrail or something steady. And you should be able to stand in front of something, so I'm going to represent the bottom rung on this chair as a step, like a little step stool. You should be able to alternately place one foot up on that step, come back down alternately at least 4 times each foot within 20 seconds. It's a pretty good down and dirty balance test for folks. So when people shift their weight to 1 foot and they're, whoa, I can't do that, or I don't think I can do that, right? People know that their balance is upset, or at least their system knows their balance is upset, and that should be something that should be accomplished easily. Again, if you're challenged and you're testing that out, one hand hovering over a sink or a countertop would be really helpful for you. And the classic stork test. How long can you stand on one test? Again, safety first. You want to do this next to a counter, ideally a kitchen sink, because you can grab that kitchen sink with a gripper. And basically, as I'm next to the kitchen sink, how long can I maintain my balance? The number of seconds with eyes open or eyes closed will surprise you in what is ideal or optimal for the age groups. For instance, middle line between the ages 60 and 69. Females a full 30 seconds, males 33 with their eyes open. Eyes closed, 4 or 5 seconds. Some of their 70s, a full 16 seconds for females, and almost up to 30 seconds for males. And that's this sort of thing, right? What are some things we can do to improve our balance? Anyway. What are some things that we can do to improve our balance? Sally, come on now. Help me out.
Well, for myself, it strengthened my knees.
Strengthen your knees, right? Right. What else?
Practice.
Certainly practice.
Toes flat on the floor.
What's that?
Toes flat on the floor.
feeling toes flat on the floor, right? There's a whole number of things we can do. The biggest is sit less, move more. Look, I get it. I'm on vacation and I don't have to work. I love good afternoon. I'm not going to lie, right? If we're sitting watching more TV than we're up and moving around during the day, that's maybe a warning sign. Our bodies need constant stimulation to keep it tuned up. It's a beautiful structure, but it needs stimulation. Just because we're not working doesn't mean we can't be active on a regular basis. So, here's another topic. One thing that wasn't mentioned to improve balance is walking. And the question is does walking actually help improve balance? It's oftentimes prescribed or suggested that people should walk to improve their balance. And oftentimes fitness experts recommend it. Let's take a look at some research that's rather inconvenient, however. So this is a study that was done about 10 years ago. And it took a look at how to improve balance in individuals who have troublesome balance. What they did is they designed the study to be a practical study in that they had one group who didn't really do anything, just monitored their balance over time. They had another group that they said, hey, we want you to increase your activity level, and they wanted you to get up to, encouraged to do more walking, moving, that sort of thing, right, essentially. So, they followed these individuals over nearly a year, so this is a long period of time, 48 weeks. What they found was that individuals that they advised to do brisk walking to improve their health, they measured their balance, and the other individuals who didn't do anything just did incidental walking throughout their day, going to the refrigerator, going to get groceries, going to church, their routine activities, and they took a look at those, what it looked like over time. What they found was that the individuals who weren't prescribed the exercise of walking to improve their balance, they moved an average of nearly an hour a day of walking. The individuals who walked purposely had a little bit more activity, 36 hours in total, if you will. There was no difference in activities between those that were encouraged to do the walking in their balance and those that weren't encouraged to do walking, which is crazy. But you'd think that people were told who were rather inactive, who had trouble with balance, that walking would help their balance. It didn't. And that is research that's been replicated numerous times. So the first thing from this is, with the number of hours that individual used for the fitness walking, they probably would like those 117 hours back, right? And second, walking, according to the research, is no more effective at improving balance as having a Diet Coke with a Big Mac is at losing weight. I don't want to disrespect walking, and if you are walking currently, continue. Walking in and of itself is not enough to keep your legs strong and to prevent loss of balance. Again, don't stop logging walking. Just know that one needs to do more than just walking in order to be fit. I think it's great. If you've got a walking partner and you're walking outside, you're at the light, wherever, terrific. Don't stop. But just be sure that you're including something that might resemble strength training, or something that might resemble true balance training to help if you're concerned about your balance, which most people are. And that's especially true if you are concerned about or have fallen before or recognizing that your balance is precarious. So that's my second big point, is keep walking, but it's not enough. Physical endurance, one more thing. Cardiovascular endurance is a term that's oftentimes used. I'll use the term physical endurance. Pretty straightforward definition. Do you have the ability to do what you want for as long as you want? And this is related to the health of the heart and lungs. It's also related to your energy systems and overall robust health. So this can be trained and improved over time. And with a couple things, especially if we think about correct type of activities, and maybe we start thinking about tightening up that the type of foods that we eat, whether or not we're eating healthier foods or less healthy foods. That can absolutely have a role in this as well. I won't get into too much of that in this talk today. But the simple test for physical endurance is, can you walk for 6 minutes straight without resting? Can you get to the back of Walmart to the front? Or festival and back without stopping? Can you get up and down a flight of steps without feeling gassed? Don't want to feel like that. After a flight of steps, you want to feel invigorated, like you could do more. So there's some simple endurance tests. So if you feel like you might have some trouble in that category, that'd be a good time to consider training in addition to those other activities, and training your endurance, pushing the amount of time that you do things. So we didn't score these exactly, but you can kind of project what you might score these are. If you've taken notes, you could do some of these on your own as well. But take an honest look at, hey, how would I do with those? Could I do 15 sit-to-stands out of a chair? How long could I stand on a single leg? How many times could I lift a 5 or 8 pound weight in 30 seconds? If you think you might be struggling in some of those activities, there are resources for you. So there's resources that you can do. There's do-it-yourself, there's community resources, and there's professional consultations with experts. So mobility training for do-it-yourself are a couple of basic exercises, and if these are in your routine, great. You can add these in your routine. Hip flexion stretch, calf stretch, low back stretch, cross arm stretch, finger crawl stretch. If you're struggling with some of those areas, to start out with maybe once or twice a day, maybe you work it 3 times a day for 10 repetitions. We'll see if we get as flexible as this guy. So a couple hip flexor stretches. I talked about the importance of the flexibility of the hips. And for those of you that are questioning, like, where is the hip? Because a lot of people think maybe the hip is over here or maybe back here. Your hip joint is actually in the front here, where you create a crease when your knee goes up to your hip, or the crease where you sit. That's where your hip joint is, deep in there. Certainly some knee to chest while you're lying on your back, or even knee to chest while you're sitting in the chair can help encourage normal reaction in your hip flexibility stretch. Calf stretch. This is my favorite calf stretch. I know that some individuals, they're taught a calf stretch where they put their foot up against the wall to try to stretch their foot. I'm not a big fan of that one. I think just simple, foot straight forward. I'm leaning on the counter, feeling some sort of stretch between my heel and my knee, and that calf muscle. Very simple and straightforward, well controlled, well tolerated. For this one, more time is better. 30 seconds, 3 repetitions, once or twice a day. Most individuals have calves that are too tight, and that can affect their walking speed and their walking stability. Second one is just lassoing a belt around the front of your foot. You're gently tugging on that with your heel resting on the floor. You do that sitting on the edge of the bed or sitting in the chair. That's nice if someone has maybe some difficulty and some stiffness upon waking in the morning, or they've got a real sensitive or irritated ankle and foot. It might be a good do-it-yourself calf stretch. Back extension. This is one of my favorites, right? Loss of backward bending is a real bugaboo for a whole host of reasons, right? Some of it is we just do so much sitting in life and forward movement that we forget about backward bending. We don't have enough variety in our movements to do a lot of overhead reaching, which is going to get backward bending, you see, or deliberate movements. We're doing a lot of things always forward, but simply hands on the back of the hips. Some of you might even groan thinking about this. Drive that hip forward. Is an outcome that we'd like to see because that encourages normal movement, particularly for walking and standing tolerance. Extremely important. Cross arm stretch, like you're getting ready for training, right? Just hugging your arm, lean it across. Nice and easy. Nothing too extreme. and the finger crawl stretch. Well, the first exercise I learned from one of my mentors. Walk through a doorway, crawl those fingers up, pass through. Strength training, some do-it-yourself activities, straight leg raise, heel raise, hip ABD or abduction, partial squats, sit to stands, lateral step-ups. I'm giving away the farm here. I love this meme. Me, gonna get up to the gym early today, set myself a regimen and gains. Me also, asleep on the machines. Straight leg raise, pretty basic, right? Line on your back, tighten that front thigh muscle, raise it up a bit. Sitting variety of this is beautiful. Edge of the chair, foot anchoring yourself steady on the floor, tighten that front thigh up, really make that muscle pop. Raise your heel up just a few inches. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Lower it down. Keeps that quadricep muscle, that front thigh muscle, active and strong. Very critical. Heel raise is pretty self-explanatory. Maybe going from double support to maybe even single support. Simultaneously working on some balance activities. When we're standing and there's a natural to and fro for balance control, heel raises can keep that active and strong as well. Hip abduction, love this one. Stand on one leg, up to the side, doesn't need to be a big movement. She's really flexible. I'm not going to replicate that. Even the standing leg. Anybody, next time you do this at home, stand on one leg, bring your leg to the side, feel the leg you're standing on. That's where the money is. That's where the benefit is, really. This other one is going to be helpful as well, but certainly that standing leg is getting a lot of good work with that activity. Partial squats, here we get into some iffy stuff, right? No one should strengthen in areas that are painful, and if they are, that's maybe not a do-it-yourself project. So sometime, who in here maybe has some creaky knees, maybe a little painful when they go down to a squat? There's somebody out here, I know. So this one, you don't go to that extent, and if that one doesn't jive with you, if it's not comfortable, don't do it. Simply holding on to something for a little bit of balance, just squatting enough so those knees get in front of your toes. Hold it for 5 count. You'll feel quite a lot of work in there. Anybody take a Tai Chi class? Ever, right? Good for you. Right? So that standing partial squat, they're doing that continuously, doing that Tai Chi movement. Terrific activities. Sit to stand. Now, not everybody's out of the gate capable of just dropping a squat, right? But sit to stand out of a chair is essentially a squat. That's safe. Why people can do that and not a squat, I still haven't figured out. I've been at this a while. However, sit to stands get you 80-90% of the benefits of squats without the stress in the knees. Yes, go ahead.
What about doing some partial squats against a wall?
So Barb is talking about partial squats against the wall, and I'm not a big fan of that necessarily for a number of reasons, but what she's talking about is this. I think if you're a downhill skier, this is great. I like to combine, like, here's the thing.
For balance.
Yeah, here's the thing. Most people, they have a limited tolerance to how many exercises they're willing to do. So if I'm doing a standing partial squat, I'm also working on my balance at the same time.
But if balance is an issue, then you still want to try to strengthen your knee.
Wall squats, as long as you're safe, great option. Great option. But here's the other thing, to Barb's point. Okay, maybe you don't have such good balance. This is perfect. Lateral step up. That allows you to do the work of both legs on one leg and be very safe. So if you go next to your stairs, use the handrail, you do a step up, you're safe holding on the handrail, and all your weight's being controlled with one leg. I love this. For whatever reason, even problematic knees, typically we'll be able to do this and use that as a strategy for strengthening. Yes?
People can't go on a regular size step if they have platform that is 4 inches high, that would be a start.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing is, one could just hold on to the counter and just do a mini step on the side too. So, I had the privilege. I started working in home health in 1991. Before it was cool. And when you see people in their home and you have to come up with exercise programs for them, you get really creative. So you could do nearly all of this at your kitchen counter and kitchen table. So that's one thing that's cool about it. All right. So those are some do-it-yourself activities, right? Some of the things you may have seen before, some might be new to you. Certainly, there's also you want to be a bridge and give ideas of what people can do in the community. Certainly, the Oshkosh Senior Center has terrific classes. They have fitness, yoga, tai chi, a number of classes. YMCA, obviously, a lot of you know about the classes here. And which class are we going to sign up for? Strength training, great. All right. Or go see Ben and then learn the strength equipment, because I want to see more hands raised next time I come here. And then, of course, at Physical Achievement Center, expert level care if you're really stuck or have some problematic areas. We'll talk about that a little bit. Some great organizations. I think it's appropriate to consult with a doctor or physical therapist when your weakness has increased considerably over the last 3 to 4 months. You've fallen, or nearly fallen, even once, outside of like an obvious slip on ice or a trip on something. But even those activities is probably telling you something. And why would falling be something that you want to pay attention to? You want to avoid falls to avoid injurious or some sort of catastrophic injury, but you also predict the next fall. So you've fallen once, it'll increase your chance of falling again. We don't want that. Pain and stiffness prevents you from doing these activities. You keep massaging, slathering ointments on, or trying to address painful areas that you know are limiting your ability, or just spinning your wheels. Might be time to get some professional help. If pain keeps you from standing more than 30 minutes, sitting for more than 60 minutes, or walking for more than 10 minutes, that's not a normal aging process, right? If you're not living life as actively as you'd like to be, it might be a good time to consult with a specialist, and especially if you're fearful of losing your independence and want others and yourself to stop worrying about you. And we all know that hiding under the covers doesn't get you the results. So, all right. So some of you have some links to some resources on your sheets. Certainly, a couple of things. Number one is have an opportunity to enter into a drawing to earn enough free massage. But you can also have an opportunity to sign up for a discovery visit. You can see Erica or Brent for that if you're interested in it. And we can talk a little bit about that. But I want to open the floor to any questions or concerns people have. Yes, sir. Yeah. So great question. TRX machine. How many people are familiar with TRX machines? Good. Love them. Good stuff. So TRX machines, suspension machines, so we get a nice routine from them. I like it. Good stuff. Yes, go ahead.
So you say you're using equipment twice a week. How many reps? How many minutes? Twice a week I go there, but I say, well, I did it.
So I think the range of activities, about 10, 2 to 4 sets. 2 to 3 times a week. So when I was saying in summer and fall, when it's nice outside, you want to be more active, get in the gym 2 times a week for strength training. When winter sets in, see if you can aim for 3 times a week. So it should be about a 20 to 25, 30-minute routine. If you just follow that simple exercise routine that's here at the Y on those simple machines, go around robin, 2, maybe 3 times. That's a guidance with staff, but even if you poke around on that, so that you're working a bit.
Besides the exercise, are there any particular vitamins at this stage that we should make sure we're taking?
So the question is about vitamins. I don't know if there's any like one vitamin that would be beneficial. I'm a big fan of, I think for more robust health, we should eat more like an old school farmer, fresher, closer to nature, eat around the perimeter of a grocery store, right? Eat lots of multiple colored vegetables. I think certainly a multivitamin is appropriate. I certainly think for some individuals, supplementing with magnesium can be helpful. Vitamin D can be helpful, particularly in winter. I am a fan of some supplements for joint health. That's kind of a different topic, but
Like a calcium, would you say a calcium to help strengthen bones, or does that help now?
calcium, I'm not sure of the evidence if it's there for strengthening bones. If someone's concerned about their bone health, what can they do? Strength training and weight training, in addition to eating a good, nutritious, well-rounded diet. But I don't know if the supplements themselves, maybe there's some research out there, I'm just not familiar with it. But thank you, good question. Yes, Barbara?
You know, as most people are employees in Medicare, they can have a wellness physical on a year, usually, and during that wellness, they can have some of these lab tests that will tell you whether you're deficient in vitamin D or iron or some of these things, and listen to the doctors about what they recommend.
Good point. I don't know if anybody heard that. On your wellness yearly exam, press your doctor, nurse practitioner, to get a full panel and see if there's any deficiencies in key essential vitamins, minerals. Point well taken. All right, super. Well, thank you, everyone.